Gentlemen, if I could kindly get your attention just for this session. It's great to see so much chatter and buzz in the room, but we have plenty of food and drinks afterwards so you can continue the conversations. This is going to be a very special session. It's the last session, and it's going to be the founder's story. Now, you might think this is just a regular panel, but I'm going to share a little bit of context as to why this is so special. The Google founder's story, or the series, was actually started 3 years ago, and it's quite an entrepreneurial story because 2 workers or employees just asked their boss and pitched their idea about creating a more intimate community for founders. It started in a room just with 12 people in a circle, and they were talking about their stories, their failures, their successes. And now it's grown to an initiative that's across 15 countries. And I'd love to welcome someone very special to the stage. His name is Tran. He actually is one of those who helped spearhead this strategy, and he's going to be leading this conversation. He's going to come up, but before we do that, let's kick things off with a video.
My name is Hans, and I'm really thrilled to be your host of today.
So every time now we raise money, we have to add a significant amount of money to an exit for this to make sense, for me, for the investors, for everyone. So then you start realizing, oh, maybe I should start thinking about an exit path.
I think it's really important to understand, do I want to exit, to get out of the business and do something new? Or is it something to accelerate something and to make the vision broader?
Think about what actually drives you, because if you love what you do and the business is going great and it's going in the right direction and you can sell, but you don't have to, maybe think about not selling because you have everything that you want and then maybe afterwards you don't.
Usually those founders which are like successful and serial entrepreneurs, they bring this drive because they believe in their product and their mission, and they transfer that to their colleagues and to the co-founding team. And then this creates those magic teams which can make the impossible possible.
It's about the people. You really have to glue and work together and trust each other.
I was always pushing for our people to have shares. 10 employees became millionaires through this acquisition, and that was really one of the most beautiful things.
I said good morning, I said good afternoon, and here I am saying good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Founder Story. For those who I haven't met today, my name is Hans, and I was your host in The Next Big Thing. That was the name of the room. And it was a pleasure, as Olivia said, to hear all this chatter and the energy still at 5 o'clock in the evening after such a long day. And that is an applause to you, because only the startup ecosystem can bring such a level of energy. So thank you very much. And I think that's a really applause to you, Regula, and your entire team to create such a phenomenal day. So let's close it off with a special episode of the Founder Story in collaboration with our partner, Swiss Startup Association. It takes a village to raise a child, and that is so true when it comes to growing your startup. We couldn't have done it alone, and we shouldn't be doing it alone. It is all these community shapers you see here, which we collaborate hand in hand with over the years to make the Swiss startup ecosystem the success what it is today, and hopefully even more successful of tomorrow. So hands up for those who have never been at the Founder Story before, or it's the first time of you today. Okay, gotcha. Keep your hands up. Sabrina, you were a founder of the speaker of season 1, so 4 years ago, and remember when you were one of the 12 people. And it was that community we created back then to exchange thoughts and ideas. But that community, to our surprise, continued living online. Some people started using the hashtag, the Founder Story GCP, And it became a tradition of the Founder Story episode that we take a selfie and post it later online to share our thoughts, learnings, and experiences and people we have met. And as you can see here, this was only from the last episode where you saw a trailer and a summarization of the video. We want to really take this episode and this format to thank, once and foremost, the founders who come on stage with us also today in a minute, because it takes great courage to bring the vulnerability up on stage and share some of the highs, but sometimes even more importantly, some of the lows. Because it's exactly that journey what startups are going through, which sometimes feels very, very much alone. And it is the community today we have here together, where it is worth it to share the story in a very unfiltered way. So thank you very much for all the previous founders who have shared the story openly, and for the ones yet to come. When we picked today's topic a couple months ago, we couldn't have thought more clearly that how the world is going to look like. To be truly honest with you, when we picked the title, Navigating Different Economic Cycles, we thought it's just normal life cycle of a startup is going through. But look at what it is today. I mean, we could not have anticipated the world becoming, getting into this picture. And as we have heard it from so many panel discussions and presentations and open conversations today, it is worrying. A lot of startups out there are wondering, how am I even going to survive that? How are we going to even get out of it, and what's going to be the next step I can possibly take? And the picture is not very optimistic right now. If you look at the current market resources, analyzing the Swiss ecosystem, there's lesser funding rounds happening with lesser money. And if you look at into some industries like fintech and SaaS, they hit very, very hard with the money. Sometimes disruption of AI, but sometimes also because of the lack of funding. What broke my heart the most is to see that last year, over 10,000 businesses had to go through a closure. That is a 5% year-over-year growth. So it is really a tough time, I think, and anyone out here being a founder yourself, you probably feel that too. Now, what we want to do with the founder story is also to share a little bit of hope with you all and learn from people who have gone through similar situations. And as history repeats itself, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Specifically, today we want to learn from two founders who, with their startup, even though they exited successfully, has definitely had some hardships along the way. For those who remember 2008, the global financial crisis, some of the founders might have even not been in the workforce yet and still being in school, but definitely what everyone remembers is not too long ago, not too far distance memory of the global pandemic, where the world was thinking, what the heck are we going to do? And yet, again, as you can see here, two companies have managed to navigate through those times successfully, with an exit even. And as in good old founder story tradition, it should not be only the few opinions here on stage today talking about how to go through that, giving advice and even sharing some stories, but it should be a conversation and engagement. So we invite you all to scan this QR code where it leads you to a Mentimeter to post your questions. And the beauty of crowd intelligence, most likely someone else has already posted a similar question which you want to ask. So don't forget to upvote if you see someone else having asked a similar questions. For those who have been here before, they know this is probably the hardest time in terms of time management in the end, to go through all the questions. So we're going to pick, ideally, the top 5 questions where we're going to have a deep dive conversation with our panelists. So without further ado, let's head towards our speakers. Hands up in here, who has ever heard about the company Encuentra24? Few in the front rows. Probably I just don't see you guys in the back row, but a few, okay. For those who haven't raised their hands yet, think of Scout24, but for Central and South America. What a scope to cover. And a tech startup created in 2005, conquering Central and South America, silently here from Switzerland, Bern, I think specifically, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very excited today to welcome on stage my first panelist, Wendy Jordan from Encuentra24. Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome, Wendy.
Good evening, everybody.
So, to my second panelist today, a story quite prominent lately in the Swiss startup scene and hopefully also beyond a little bit. They have been on stage here before in the founder story, back then just talking about the effects of AI. And it is the first time, in fact, in history of the founder story where we invited a startup twice on stage. But I think through their latest merger and acquisition, I think it's fair to say that the story has evolved from then. We heard a snippet of it this morning already from Thomas Inhelder about the merger and acquisition from Yokoi. So please welcome on stage Thomas Inhelder. So thank you both, Wendy and Thomas, in joining us today at the Founder Store, concluding what already is a very wonderful day. We want to try a different format today. So let's do a little bit of a time travel. Let's go back to the year of 2005, where Encuentra24 was founded. I have here 3 emojis I searched to represent that time, and for those long enough around to remember that time, desktop was still the preliminary device to access internet. At that time, Panama, where the company was first started focusing on, is going through an economic growth, amongst others through the building of the Panama Canal. And that has led to a further growth in construction businesses across the country, leading to great economic growth. But in your own words, Wendy, can you describe a little bit the economic landscape during that time when you founded Encuentra24?
Sure. So the climate in Panama, we transitioned from being called almost a third world country, as some people may have referred to it, to an emerging country. It was a country where we were attracting investors, we were attracting a lot of people wanting to buy real estate, to relocate their businesses. And the government made amazing strides in this direction, attracting an amazing amount of people into the country. So for me, it was a very punctual and a very great moment for growth in the country.
And to your personal story, how did you come about the idea of founding Encuentra24?
Encuentra24 was a project that me and my co-founder, who was then my partner, and later on my ex-husband, my husband and then my ex-husband. First husband, then ex-husband. And we basically wanted to find a home for ourselves. He's Swiss, so we met in Panama, and we were trying to find a home. We didn't have as much money. So we said, let's create a database of all of the properties that are there available so we can find something really cheap. And from that, we started. We noticed that there was nothing out there. There was only the newspapers back then. I don't know if you remember the classified newspapers. And it was just not enough. I really wanted to see the pictures. I wanted to see the property inside. I wanted to see all of the information. I love data, I love information. So from there, we said, let's create something so that we can find a home for ourselves.
And I think for the people trying to wrap their head around this time, this epoch, again, like just Google it later. YouTube and Google Maps were launched in 2005, and if you look at the interface, I think some engineers would be embarrassed about it today. We heard about before, right, in the times of AI, people would just think of prompting it, right, where you're like, oh, just put in a prompt and search the ecosystem, but that was a non-established business model at that time, right? It was very new, it was very nascent to the environment. So that was the disruptive element you brought into Panama, right? What is seemingly the standard today of housing market was revolutionary at that time.
Yes, definitely. The newspapers and the media basically hated us because we were disrupting this part of their business. They were generating income through the classifieds. And there was a lot of TV classifieds. There were other medias that we started disrupting, and we had a huge reach because we did the website in English, we did it even in German and in Spanish. And with this, we were attracting an audience, an international audience that was interested in purchasing properties in Panama. So they really wanted us out of the country, and we were definitely disrupting way before our time.
Wow. So disruption is never welcomed at any time of age. Let's go a few decades forward because I want to include you, Thomas, to the discussion. I have 3 more emojis for you. Yokoi was founded in 2019. Just about the year before, in 2018, the world has reached the tipping point that 50% of the global population has access to the internet. Just in 2018, mainly driven by the mobile access. Unicorns, we've seen it in some presentations today, was at the peak of its time measured by exits. Cloud computing was well established as the new software as a service replacing enterprise on-prem solutions. So that was a little bit of the climate back then. But in your own words, when you founded Yokoi, how would you describe the time around you?
The time around us. So I do think when it comes to cloud computing, yes, it started, but in the beginning we had to convince clients to go onto the cloud, and that was basically beginning 2020. And I mean, 5-year hindsight, you could not imagine, right? But there were like questions. We want to talk to Google. We want to change policies. We want to. I mean, nowadays, like only 5 years later, you cannot imagine what kind of questions we basically got. So that was, on the one hand, challenging. On the other hand, we pretty much knew that cloud computing also in the B2B world will be a set thing. And I found it very interesting as like the likes of Salesforce, they were super established at that point in time, but we still had, and we started obviously in DACH region, and if you compare it to other markets, obviously we're still lacking, especially if you look a little bit into the north. However, yeah, it was questions asked I could not have imagined when we found it really. Yeah, sometimes even what is cloud or what is cloud, we even have to explain to the client, no, you don't have to install it locally.
Yeah, and on top of that, you made the bet to use AI as your USP, right? Way before this whole explosion happened a couple of years back. Backstage, you told me back then it was relatively easy to hire AI specialists because, yeah.
That was. I mean, one of our founders is a genius when it comes to AI. So I think 5-6 years back, if you had the right connections, it was possible, and it was not that much. I mean, in the end, yes, AI helped definitely also to automate things, but it was more about we tried to solve the issue of manual processes. So and then basically AI helped us, and in the beginning we had to explain what is a large language model. Nowadays, ChatGPT has solved that question for everyone, right? We explained how it works, what different models we're using, and then there was always this data privacy thing. There was a big thing. So looking back 5 years, the world has changed completely.
And we heard from Wendy before, some people wanted Encuentro 24 out because they were the disruptive one. Which ones were the ones wanted you out? Did you have some like hardware provider on-prem, like throwing disks at you, wanting to out of business, or who was the ones being disrupted by you?
So,
Which were
you
the
mean from a competition?
Yeah, exactly. Which ones did you disrupt?
Well, we had obviously the guys with the 3 letters. We got pretty soon on the radar as we were on the first bigger clients. We obviously would not challenge them in their core, but obviously in surrounding systems quite a bit. Yes, I don't think it was that much anger or whatever. I mean, they had a stable business and they still had a super profitable company, right? It was more how can these guys with a team of 10 people basically win those clients? It's absolutely impossible also to implement. And that we had to prove. And it was less about, I don't think it was that much anger like you experienced. It was more surprise.
Yeah, like caught them by surprise through speed as well, right? So to stay on the topic of momentum, when you're now looking back, it's a good 20 years ago, right? What were the things you bet on where you say it was the right choice, which was what you anticipated for Encuentro to become successful later? It was, we heard before, lack of availability, but what else were the trends you bet on to be successful later?
I think we mostly bet on the slow growth that was going to be needed for this. I'm very surprised to see sometimes in Switzerland how people can just accelerate so quickly. And I've been doing some angel investing for the last few years, and I see how startups say, I'm going to exit in 5 years, I'm going to exit in a few years. And I'm like, wow. We really bet on a long-term project. It wasn't about making money or being profitable. Everything that came into the company, we reinvested it again into hiring, into tech, into software. And with this, we were able to scale quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Also because you probably didn't have the market pressure of this like napkin unicorn pitch, where you raise $1 million in one dinner, right? Like
no.
the ecosystem wasn't quite there yet.
It still is not there. So there wasn't this competitive in Panama,
Yeah.
exactly. There's not this competitive environment where you're pitching to investors and you're trying to find VC money. I think we have one VC, and I know them. But yeah, it's a completely other landscape. There we just really needed to focus on having a good quality product, listening to our clients, listening to to each one of the companies that we work with, and scaling from there.
Yeah, and that, let's not forget, that can be a good thing to not have too much noise from the market telling you have to like exit in 5 years and scale 10x in 2 years.
I also didn't have investors for the first 10 years. It probably went slow because of that.
Yeah.
When we did have investors, there was a little bit more pressure, but it was good pressure.
Yeah. So that can be a good thing as well. Whereas for you, Thomas, other momentum you bet on, I mean, obviously 10x scale was already from day one in your mindset. I remember you hung up a unicorn in the office, a physical one. But what other momentums were you trying to bet on for later success?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we bet on AI, and we knew it worked, right? I mean, we could prove to the client, hey, it works. It is different that current systems, and we as a founding team, we always wanted to go all in. I think that was super important, and I think probably totally different times than when you founded, because we always had the vision. I mean, we all worked for a startup before, at least one. Others founded even before. So we knew if we're gonna do it, we're gonna go all in, and we go bet on certain things. And obviously, automation as a main topic, and then a kind of a subtopic, how you do it with AI. That was the main bet we did, because we experienced firsthand in our previous roles how clunky the incumbent system were. So that was basically our bet, and we knew we have to be fast. I think that is the one thing. If you take the VC money, you need to go all in. You go all in again and again. With every series or every round you're doing, you go all in again. And we actually, even with the exit, we go all in again. So it's not like it never stops until you really exit.
It's interesting because it's not a kind of pulse you feel too often in the Swiss startup ecosystem. This like all-in, committed, and sometimes when we talk to startups, right, sometimes they want to like figure things out, or like go a little more careful. What would you say was different that triggered you guys to say let's do commit, let's go full in?
I think we all quitted well-paid jobs, and I didn't feel like hanging around for 3 years and having having to bet for money, and it's basically opportunity cost, right? And we had this very high target. I mean, I can tell it now. We said if you don't make 2 million ARR in the first year, we just quit and dismantle the whole company. We didn't quite make that. We made almost 1.5, which was for us a disappointment, but our investor told us that's quite nice actually. And we always had like the theme like you shoot for the stars and land on the moon. So kind of really aggressive, and we kept that. With every round, obviously the pressure is rising, right? You need to keep the aggressiveness kind of, and certain investors, the likes of Sequoia, they help you doing that. So they would not back down. They would double down in any market environment. So if you had a great quarter, double down. If you have a bad quarter, double down anyway. So that was, I mean, it was really convincing to us founders. We had always the same mindset. We wanted to go down this route. You have just to be aware, if you want to play the VC game, you need to play the VC rules. And,
yeah, so fully committing, and I think that's the cross-pollination also having from a Silicon Valley-backed VC. You know, I remember Phil, the CEO, he went camping with Elon Musk. You know, that's his story, where you really get the feeling of how it is there to be with other fast-growing founders. So I don't want to be riding on this golden arrow for too much and too long, because we had a good session about it before, and as promised, you know, both your companies, soon after you were founded, were hit by a global crisis. And I want to give a little bit of a context here. It was not just a global crisis where it impacted interest rates and inflation rates and the KPIs, which affects every business, but the consequences of both crises had fundamental impact on your business model. So in the real estate business, right, having a global financial crisis being triggered by subprime mortgages, that is quite key. And at the same time, when no one is traveling anymore, there's not a lot of expenses to be done. So that is probably the tone I want to set here. When that hit, Wendy, what was going through your head, and how? Because I'm thinking like, holy crap, my core business, what do I do with this?
So actually, it ended up being okay for us. And this is where being part of a country that is sometimes blacklisted or gray listed is good. Because the world can be on fire, but we found a way to have our own economy, and we were locked in. So the government actually ended up doing a lot of beneficial schemes for expats to come into the country and buy property. And this is when we started doing really, really well.
No shame in that. No shame in that. Congratulations. Wonderful. Yes, sometimes it's the momentum creating a beautiful scenario.
Yeah, the only negative thing was obviously with all of the investors and everybody coming into the country, hiring became very, very difficult. We were still a startup. We didn't have much money. And the startups weren't as interesting, I think still, but not back then. And very qualified people didn't want to just venture into working with some 3-4-year-old company. They would rather work with somebody that was very popular name. So hiring became something very, very difficult, and I had to invest a lot into company culture.
And how did you overcome that then to still get the right people for the company?
Well, part of it, I invested quite a lot in automation. I found a way. This is without AI. This is like I found a way to make things work, even if somebody didn't show up for work, even if somebody quit or somebody was hired because they was probably getting more salary somewhere else. And again, the other thing that I did was invest quite a lot into company culture. So these people became my friends. I was looking out for them. And this is a very different scheme that it usually is in Latin America.
Why? Can you paint us the picture as what it is?
What does it look like?
Yes.
For example, when I'm here in Switzerland, I always see that the bosses or the managers, they kind of all go out to lunch together, And it's maybe it's a language thing, but it's more like you. It's not this kind of respectful. In Latin America, we have other words, something like in German, Sie. So, and that already kind of separates the bosses and the managers from the employees. So nobody kind of goes to lunch together. Nobody sees each other on the weekends. It's like, you're my boss. But we kind of broke that, and we try to like hang out with them, invite them, and try to have fun with them, and sit down next to them while they were working and just make jokes about silly things. I don't know. But also go on boat rides, and we did a whole lot more that is not normal for Panamanian companies, because I saw what was going on here, and I thought, I want that type of company culture in Panama.
Oh, so you saw that?
I saw that here, yes.
Yeah. And
my developers are here in Switzerland, and I saw how they were working, and I thought, well, that's cool.
And how did the team react? I mean, were they like, what do you mean, see, and do? Or
frankly, I used to have a lot of people that would quit, and it was quite difficult because they would like, if DHL came into the country, everybody left to go to work at DHL. And Encuentra 24 is like, what is that? And some random woman. But after that, they would not quit. They would not. They would not leave the company, and even I think until I exited, they were still, a lot of the people that were there, they were after 15 years, they were still in the company because they liked the culture, and they missed working with the founders.
I want to get back to the topic of resilience through crisis, but before that, Thomas, same thing for you. Like, what was going through your head when you saw no one was traveling anymore? The software decided to do expense management.
Now, luckily, we closed the Series C basically on Friday, and on Monday was the lockdown, so we had enough cash. So we said, look, we have now, I don't know, 1.5 million to burn through. Let's go all in. We had like 3 employees, so we were 8 in total. And we developed and we used the time to make the product better, because very honestly, the first 20 clients, they got a little bit more than a MVP, I would say. It worked, but it was still scrappy. And we used basically the time to develop the product. So 3-4 months was all about product development, and our sales was basically talking to clients and acted like product. So no one wanted to buy, but they still wanted to ask what you don't like at your current expense system whatsoever. So that was the job of our sales team. And then, luckily for us, a lot of companies decided to basically redo expense processes during a time of no travel. That is counterintuitive and doesn't make sense. However, it's much easier to implement a new system if there's no travel. You have time to train the people, and that was then, I think after a few months it started, and especially Q4 was great sales-wise. Obviously the usage only came back after time, but we really used it first to develop the product, and then secondly, as the first began to buy again, we had really good momentum, and we could win bigger companies as they were not shy to really change a process when no one is traveling, which is much easier. Yeah, it was the time finally for some companies probably to unplug the system and try something out new, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And actually, it's the time. I mean, as I said before, we had the 1.5 million. I mean, we could have also decided, let's pay it back and go back to normal jobs. But why then? Was that an option? Startup? No, not a sec. No, we said, look, we stay for 1 year, and then we see where we are. Either we fly or we crash. There's nothing in between. So no, we stick to the plan, and luckily it worked. I want to slowly transition to the point of building resilience, because both of you had a moment of cultural shift internally as a company as well, right? Sales started to become product manager, and you tying the team even closer. That goes to the topic of resilience, right? Like, studies have shown that startups being founded during economic hardships tend to be more resilient for later growth, because they're more innovative. They have learned to work more with more scarcity. So what are the things you have learned now
from that time where you think other startups can apply to it, going through the hardship they're going through now?
Me. So, yeah, basically don't or use the time in a different way, right? Our plan was actually to go out and sell as much as possible. Obviously, you need to do that to get the money in. However, if you can't, as I said before, we were well founded for a team of 8. So we had the runway to basically double down and develop and invest and try everything we can. So the one thing I didn't want personally, and we didn't want as a group, to say after 1 year, yeah, we haven't done everything we could. So we basically doubled down, risked it, and I think all the startups that made it through the COVID time got out much stronger in the end. So yeah, make the best out of it. I mean, you can only influence the things you can influence, right? All the market surrounding you can't. So I can't change the man in the White House currently. It's what it is. So you need to focus on what you can influence and make the best out of it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't.
It's a very, a tough statement to digest, because it's as also
No, I don't agree. Look, in Switzerland, you don't risk to sleep next night under a bridge if you fail. And I do think we have a good social system. We can risk it. Look, there was I'm there pretty radical. Either you make it or you break it. What we didn't want from scratch, if we get VC funded, that we have a 15-employee company 5 years later, and we can pay everyone, but no profit actually, we just kind of break even. For that, I don't need VC money. So we decided deliberately to go for it, and then you need to stick to the plan. You cannot tell your VCs, yeah, by the way, hey, we want to change in the middle of the flight. So if you go it, then you do it the right way.
So what are some of the statements you made towards the company which might seem unpopular at the time but was crucial?
Statements towards the company, we had 3 employees. So we said, either you like it or you don't like it. We always did it like that. So no. I mean, we approached it also from an HR perspective. We had now, as we sold the company, we had 1 HR operations person, because we always said, if you get hired by Yokoy, there's you can learn a lot, you can learn very fast, but we demand quite a bit. So either you sink or swim, basically. That was always my thing. And then if I hire people to my team, I told them, look, it will not be easy. You will learn a lot. And either you swim with us, that's great. And if you sink, then it was worth a try. But we will not do something in between. Yeah. So I think that is one of the key things I think we did right. We did a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong, a lot of mistakes. But that was the thing. We never promised stuff we couldn't keep, and we wanted to hire people who had the same mindset, and it didn't work out for quite a few, but it worked out also for quite a lot of people, and it's all about learning in the end.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of a contrast to your approach, Wendy, because you said you took them out for lunch, you create this family-like environment, and yet it is gut-wrenching when people still decide to leave the company because of a cultural misfit. What did that do to you then?
I think there's a benefit to having a smaller company during a time of crisis versus a bigger one, because you have this capacity to pivot and change and adapt and probably focus on creating new products or training your team or training your customers. And when the company was bigger, and we did go through a crisis during COVID, it was very difficult. By then, I had 5 offices in Central America. I needed to let go of almost 30% of my staff.
How many people was that?
It was about 20 people. And it was heartbreaking for me and quite difficult to then. We already had investors, we had clients that could no longer operate because in the country, the government said at least real estate brokers are not allowed to operate during the pandemic. So we needed to restructure, and we needed to say, okay, so we're going to train our customers, and now they can understand. We're going to do a whole bunch of webinars and show them how to use our products, and how this way, after the pandemic, they have a better understanding of using the system. So I still remembering the first crisis, and how great it was to have a smaller team, because if we wanted to cut corners, if we wanted to change to another software that was much better and faster, we were able to do it. But when you have an entire team of 70 people or 100 people and you suddenly want to use another cheaper CRM, making that change and training everybody into using it can be quite difficult.
It's quite inspiring to sit here next to you, because I can see in both of your eyes that this was not a moment where you enjoyed particularly, or let alone feel good about to having to communicate those things. And yet you say it so firmly, because I think having gone through those crises really showed you that what it took to make the company survive, right? So and I think this is a lesson learned as well for the audience, is to not underestimate when you're agile and when you can pivot fast. Because as the problem gets bigger, the pain is not going to get any smaller. We're going to shift gears. Before we're going to head over to the question, it is a tradition to bring a Googler on stage at the Founder Story who can complement and complete the discussion. So when we talked about exit last time, we had someone from the M&A team, we had marketing sessions with our own marketeers, and this time, as we are talking about navigating economic cycle, I want to bring a special Googler on stage. Besides his daily job where he's a AI go-to-market lead and figuring out how our AI applies best to the startups out there, he's very much involved in the startup scene for a much longer time. He has, probably you know him already through his newsletter, where he publishes on a monthly basis the latest investment funds here in Switzerland. He has reached now over 10,000 followers getting that news on a monthly basis. So I'm very excited now to complete on stage our panelists today. Please welcome on stage Gian Sbetta.
Hi, everyone. I think probably too kind, Hans.
You know I'm a big fan of your newsletter and everything you do as well for the Swiss startup ecosystem. With that lens on you have, especially the ones with the newsletter, you know, you've been publishing the latest funding rounds for quite consistent amount of time now. How would you describe the current economic climate?
I mean, so I've been publishing the newsletter for 185 weeks so far, so it's pretty long time, 4 years. I do believe we live in one of the best times we can ever live now with the shift in, you know, with this AI wave. I'm really bullish on this, especially here now living in Switzerland right now, where we have such a high concentration of talents, entrepreneurs, big tech companies. I'm really bullish on the timing right now.
So you're more on a hopeful side. Have you seen the investments, however, which goes into the startups, have they changed in characters?
Well, I think it depends, right? We were coming from a couple of years back where we had the all-time high, I think around 4 billion, then we went back to 3 billion raised in the last 2 years. I think as of today, 2025, we are around 1 billion, so it's almost 1 billion per quarter. I think we are back to good times. Of course, it really depends on big rounds. Everybody in Switzerland is always complaining, you know, we lack serious growth investors. It's difficult to raise Series B, Series C, Series D, and onwards. It's true, but it's something that I think in Europe everybody is facing. But I do believe we are back on track.
Back on track. Wendy, with your hat on, because you're now active as an angel investor as well, what trends do you see then on top of what we heard from Gian?
I've been seeing quite a lot what's going on with the market for the last 2 weeks, and that it worries me a little bit. Obviously, with this fourth wave that we're going through and some of the dispositions going on in the US, there's a huge shift going on right now. And so part of me, I am still open to do quite a lot of angel investing, but still careful.
I feel hesitation. Why? Why so? What are the factors which worries you the most?
Like they said in the presentation before that where you were there, software companies are no longer, at some point will no longer exist. And this, I used to have a software company. I still am very attracted to creating another software company. But I am seeing quite a lot of echo of some of the startups that are here in Switzerland. And I see them sometimes in the UK, I see them in Latin America, I see them in the US. And I feel this a lot of repetition. So this is one of the reasons why I'm hesitant a bit.
Mm-hmm. To complete the picture, Thomas, because you guys have been through the merger and acquisition now, the conversation you had during the merger and conversation, is that what you anticipated, how the AI world will look like when you started off as an AI company? Like, were you still asked the same question and challenges during the merger and acquisition in terms of your company robustness?
You mean from the start compared to the?
Yeah. So to complete the picture, when you started, AI was the disruptor, right?
Yeah.
Today, AI is starting to become the norm, right?
Yeah.
How much was AI still in the conversation in the merger and acquisition?
Well, I do believe for pure software companies, AI will be a big challenge, a big opportunity if you use it, and a big challenge if you don't. I mean, you can replicate pure software companies in a much faster way. Obviously, you can do things in a few hours. You needed a few months. Only 1 or 2 years ago. So I do think if you're a pure software company, it's probably a bigger thing. We do have a few USPs you cannot replicate like that, like a payment license, like travel inventory now from the travel perk side, and other things you cannot just, and obviously a lot of data, a lot of specific data from clients. However, it's a very good question. I think software will get to a commodity status at a certain point. And then you need to have the things you cannot replicate that easily. And we are convinced we have those. Time will tell. But it's also a chance on the other hand. I mean, Travel Perk we don't have a lot of care, a big care team, but they have just naturally, as in the travel business, they have 400 or 500 care people. I mean, imagine if you do a trip and your flight gets cancelled in the future, you don't need to call or you don't need to do an email. Basically, an AI agent can just book you on the next flight, and that's it. So there's a lot of potential also to improve the customer experience. So I see it also more from a positive side. I'm anyway always positive, so I think the bright side.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Exactly, John. I'm glad you picked up the mic, because with your daily hat on now, because you're talking at the forefront of what AI can do, hands-on together with customers, product engineers internally. What are the use cases which excites you a lot now, being so close to technology?
I mean, so I cover 2,000 companies across DACH, right? So I do see a lot of stuff. What excites me is really about AI plus robotics, or AI plus specific industries, right? Because I think now you have lots of companies that will embed AI into their product, let's say B2B SaaS plus AI. But I'm a big fan of saying, okay, what if you go all in a specific vertical? So here in Switzerland, we have lots of examples. If you go from robotics to drones, or even there is an ETH spin-offs, they make a bagger autonomous, right? So heavy machinery, making them autonomous so you don't need someone driving the truck anymore. I think these are, it's not easy to implement, but it really solves world challenges, because we know there is a shortage of labor everywhere in each industry, right? So that's really what excites me. Also, something I like a lot is AI plus life sciences, so protein engineering, AI plus biotech. So how will the industry evolve in the future? How we will develop drugs in the future? We launched AlphaFold from Google DeepMind, Isomorphic Lab. So we have great examples also within Google how we are transforming those industries.
Mm-hmm. we kind of naturally pivoted now over to a positive AI talk, but you know, and I think, but also to speak from the resilient mindset you all went through during the hardship, right? Is to focus on what can you leverage to make the company better. I don't want to leave off the questions from the audience, so that's why I want to do this a little pause and shift now over to the live questions. If you all have been already so kind to submit your questions, and I would like to ask the studio to shift it over to the Mentimeter to see what questions we have coming in, so we have some time to answer them. So let me have a look. Thank you very much. Don't have to break my neck here. So high VC rounds and exits are always celebrated, but behind these PR stories are often fire sales, squeezed out founders, which creates a distorted reality of founders. How can we change this? Wow, this is an honest and unfiltered questions, and I leave it to you to pick it up. Anyone who wants to jump in?
Shall I take?
Yeah, go ahead.
Shall I pick it up? I do think it's important. I mean, now you see it with a lot of startups or fire sales, that you basically it's super important how you structure around. So we saw examples of like 2-3x lick pref clauses in contracts. I mean, if you have those in, you're pretty much in trouble. You need to grow. You need to grow like crazy. How we can change that? I do think everyone who goes the VC route, I mean, that is one of the possible outcomes. You have to live with it. I mean, in the end, it's nothing else. If someone gives you money, they want to have a good return on investment. And it was a long time, you know, was like VCs giving you a great return. Obviously, that changed a bit over the last few years. But if VCs need to generate a good return, you need to know what you're up for. And I'm not convinced that everyone who took VC money over the last 10, 15 years had the mindset. Yeah, it needed, and you know, I said before, every series you're raising, it's again a bet, do or die. And if you have the mindset, I think it's more raising awareness instead of changing it. We will not change the asset management or VC industry. That will stay. I think it's more expectation management we need to probably. Yeah.
I love hearing this answer from you, Thomas. Especially Yoko has been under such a spotlight of, you know, Sequoia-funded starters from Switzerland, right? And it sounds all romantic, and what I can hear from you now, it's like, be aware what you sign up for. No one forces you down this route, but if you do, you know, there's a certain rules of the games which you have to play along. Let's jump to the next question, because we have a few ones lining up here. Why is Switzerland the right place to start a startup, or is it?
Maybe I can take this one. I think in Switzerland you have an incredible support when you start right away, right? So you have amazing institutions. You have, I talk to startups almost every day that they tell me, you know, Gian, I've raised between 3 and 8 million non-dilutive funding. I said, wow, congrats, right? So I come from Italy. It's impossible to raise this money almost with VCs. Imagine non-dilutive, right? So I think it's really a great place if you want to start a company because of capital, because of talent, and accessibility.
Also, I feel the environment here blooms this. Associations like SICTIC, that I'm also part of, train and help people become angel investors so that they can also do something positive and impact and help. So this type of environment here really helps to grow and bloom much more startups than any other country that I've seen.
Yeah, and I think the wisdom you shared that with the startup equally applies to the ecosystem, right? When it's small, doesn't mean that it's weak, right? It has its superpower to have quicker connection, quicker interaction, and faster decision making. One more question. What's the next? When is a startup exit a success? Thomas.
For us, for us, our ultimate target, we said as we started the company, is an IPO. So for us founders, we knew from scratch, and I mentioned it before on the panel, we knew that we had to do something in the ecosystem. We decided, to add travel basically, and with that now we have a time window to IPO for 2-3 years. I mean, yeah, if the circumstances stay the same, it's probably tough, but there's still hope. But look, as I said before, we focus now on the company to bring it to the next level. We need to still double the revenue to be IPO ready, and first we need to do our homework. And for us, we have defined that as a success. And there's a second piece of it, and that is more employees. We had during the process various offers, and we decided on the one hand, together with the investors, that TravelPerk, who initiated the process, by the way, is the best fit, but it's also the best fit for the employees. So if you go a private equity route, there's a high risk that you need to go towards profitability. You may cut a big cost. It's a little bit different story. Most likely, we want to keep the growth we had or we have, and accelerate it, and keep the band together basically, and make the band bigger. Make it ready for an IPO. That is, for us, we have defined this as a success.
So it's not the end of the story.
No.
It continues.
Just the beginning.
Yeah,
It's
a new beginning.
Yeah.
Beginning of a beautiful love story. Let's break down the digital wall. Let's have one more question directly from the audience. Whoever, because this is good for introverts, by the way, but let's give the extroverted ones a chance to ask questions. So anyone who wants to ask a question live, here to our founders. Here you go.
I'm Igor, and I have a question.
You have to speak to the...
Hi.
Yeah, it's a microphone. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm Igor, and I wanted to ask you, what's your daily habits or mindsets that you believe that led to your success? What you do, for example, daily? How you approach, for example, problems?
At least for me, I'm very focused and very persistent. So if I just want to do something, there's nothing else that matters. This is the only thing. I'm very also KPI oriented. I like numbers, I like data, so even much more for myself, I have my own KPIs that I want to reach. So when I am working on any project, I give myself a timeline, and this kind of helps me focus and to achieve my goals, yeah.
Pretty much similar for me. My wife hated me at times during the 5 years when just there's one topic, there's the company. I mean, I have also 3 kids, so there's a side topic always, and not only a side topic, it's a very important one. But it's look at a certain point. I think you need to have the dedication, and there's always tough times. If you exit or roll over, whatever you call it. There's always the success stories, but there's never a straight line. You have so many bumps, you do so many mistakes. I think in the end, it's hard work. It's really hard work, not only from one person, from a whole team.
Yeah, maybe for me, what I can add, for sure, consistency and focus, right? Every day I look at the financing rounds in DACH or in EMEA, and then I know I have to go after those startups, because these startups are the ones that have money now in the bank account, and they most likely will spend the money on cloud compute. So I know I need to go after them.
Thank you very much for the closing questions. And thank you very much to our great panelists today, Wendy Jordan, Thomas Inhelder, and Gian Sbetta. Thank you very much. So you can take back a seat. Thank you very much. I hope you can stay around afterwards for the apéro a little bit, because I'm sure there's a lot of burning questions still to be addressed and asked. So if you have some time, you're kindly invited to stay for the apéro. Thank you very much. So, as we're wrapping up now, if you haven't had enough founder story yet, we invite you to head over to our partners platform, Swisspreneur, the largest entrepreneurial podcast here in Switzerland, to hear Wendy's story, Yoko, but also the newest edition of their Masterclasses. So please don't forget to have a look at it. And this is a question we generally always get a lot after every founder story, is how you can start with Google Cloud. And there's actually a dedicated program for your startups to sign up and get not only technological support, but also credit support and ecosystem support. So feel free to chat to us about that afterwards. Last but not least, before I ruin the whole stage, yes, this is my personal most important slide to you all, because it is a continuation of 4 years of feedback, which got the iteration to Founder Story to what it is today. So it would mean us the world if you share a quick feedback of how you found today's session, but also what you like to see in future episodes on the stage here. Good. So, thank you very much for joining. We are back on June 19th. Here in this very room, so if you want to already save and secure a ticket for then, feel free to sign up now. And on behalf of Google Cloud, hold on, I see some phones still up. Take a picture, and then you can scan later, or just ask me later in the networking. Good. This was it. Thank you very much, everyone, on behalf of Google Cloud. This was a lot of pleasure, and I would like to now, for the closure, invite my co-host, Olivia, to give you all a few words. So, Olivia.
Okay, we keep this short and sweet. I think everyone wants a drink now.
Yeah, I think so, right? So, how was it for you? How was it for everyone?
Look, I'm just going to say something really quickly. What surprises me a lot about this is that there's so much blood, sweat and tears that go behind every single story. So I think what impresses me at the end is that you're all willing to go through that. So hats off to you. And let's put your hands together for yourselves, okay? I'll give the final word over to you, Hans.
Yeah, so thank you all very much. Again, it was a wonderful day. It was a lot of pleasure, and we hope this doesn't just stop right here, but actually the fun part in the networking. And yeah, thank you very much, Olivia, for hosting everyone here. It was a great fun. And
thank you, and see you next year. We'll keep you posted on the date, okay?